Hey folks, Michael Collins again, EnviroReporter.com on Monday, September 5th, 2011, Labor Day. Now we're going to take another average of this Swiss roll cake, green tea cake with a wheat base. With the packaging off, we're going to get this timer going, 100% calibrated. Going to do a 10-minute test. And now we're going to lay it down. What we're looking for here is, since we took this item out of its packaging, we're going to see if there's any more heightened radiation, because the packaging would have obstructed any alpha radiation. Alpha radiation, depending on which kind of where it's emanating from, can be, it's estimated, between 30 and 1,000 times more dangerous than its beta and gamma radiation counterparts. So by doing another average, we can see if it comes in higher than it already did. It just came in 18.8% over background. Background being the radiation that occurs naturally, so-called naturally, from the cosmos, from the soil, with uranium, radium, and thorium in the soil, specific isotopes of that. So what we're doing is trying to get an idea of these food products if they are high in radiation. We don't have a laboratory, so we can't examine radioisotopes, and there have been people who say, oh, you can't use an inspector to measure food, or it's not the best way. Well, of course the best way to measure food is to have a full-on lab, and the Food and Drug Administration doing what I'm doing now, they are not. There is no special testing, as far as we know, for radioactive fallout in the food product stream in the United States related to Fukushima. Breaking all scientific principle and protocol, in my opinion, the government has decided, without knowing the full extent of the ongoing triple meltdowns, melt-throughs, and melt-outs at the Fukushima Daiichi plant that began nearly half a year ago in Japan, that we're downstream from in the jet stream. They've decided not to do any of the kind of testing that we're doing for food products in the United States. This is a food product from Japan, and the Food and Drug Administration is supposed to keep an eye on making sure unsafe food products from overseas don't make it into the product stream. Recently, the Obama administration quietly shelved a very expensive radiation detection system at our ports, where containers from cargo ships would slowly be passed through a big, for lack of a better word, Geiger counter. Well, it didn't work. They don't work. I believe it was hundreds of millions of dollars we have spent on this system, quietly shelved. The government says we're going to give handheld detectors to our inspectors. If you've ever been to the Port of Los Angeles and the Port of Long Beach, you will see that if you were to set loose fellas and gals with handheld detectors, they would not get very much done. There's just too much stuff. So it just goes on through, according to Arnie Gunderson of Fairwind Associates, who you can find on our resources page on EnviroReporter.com. About a month after the meltdowns began, before the Japanese government and the owner of the plant, TEPCO, even copped to the fact that they were full-on meltdowns, which would have been self-apparent to anybody who watched the videotapes of the reactors blowing apart. reactor doesn't blow apart, just sit there and behave nicely. About a month after the March 11th disaster, earthquakes, tsunami, meltdowns, according to Gunderson, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton made a not too publicized agreement with the Japanese that business as usual. Let's keep up the great trade relationship that Japan and the United States has. EnviroReporter.com has been doing a little investigating, obviously. And in Southern California alone, there are 43 groceries and markets that are Japanese, run by Japanese or Japanese Americans. You can buy these food products there. Southern California, there are about 885 Japanese restaurants. Get these food products there. Not all of them, I mean, depends on the restaurant. So we've been doing our own inspecting. We found high radiation in seaweed, green tea, Adelaide tea, another kind of tea made from wild seeds, buckwheat, beer. We're going to be doing more beer tests. In the seaweed, we found that heightened radiation, over 50% of background in the seaweed with the packaging on. Removed the packaging, it went up into the 60s, 22% higher than the previous in-packaging reading, 22% higher due to probably alpha radiation, which is easily blocked by the skin, a piece of paper, thin plastic, but if ingested is far more dangerous than beta or gamma radiation, which are very dangerous in themselves. Spectre is very accurate. You can tell that radiation doesn't emanate in a homogeneous fashion. It can come in bursts. It can be big gaps. You can see the numbers going up. What we do is we take a 10-minute average. We take a total for 10 minutes, divide it by 10, and we get a much more accurate 10 counts per minute. We do normally use the inspector in the counts per minute mode. We've been doing that for the length of radiation station, which has been coming up on 6 months. I don't know if many people have noticed this, but the 10-year anniversary of 9/11 is the 6-month anniversary of what will probably be known as the worst ecological disaster in history of mankind. The March 11th, 2011, multiple meltdowns at the Fukushima Daiichi plant on the Pacific, northeast of Tokyo. And you can see we're already over background. We're not up to the 423 we got to with this Swiss roll cake made with green tea and wheat. You're not up to that yet. If you want to draw a lesson from this, I think it's pretty apparent what the lesson is. And as we've been trying to say for a while now, if you want to keep your radiation load as low as possible, even with the unending stream of radioactive fallout that has been coming on the jet stream over the Pacific, coming down in rain, coming through fog, coming through sleet, coming through hail, coming through snow, if you want to keep your radiation load as low as possible, since radiation is cumulative, doesn't go away. If it comes in the rain and the rain evaporates, radiation doesn't evaporate with it. Then you want to know what you're eating. You want to take steps to limit your exposure, and especially your children's exposure. So this is 433. We'll do some quick math. So what we're finding here is, without the packaging, the 10-minute average is 433. That's 21.6% above background. Which is 2.8% higher than with the cake in its packaging. I think that that's close enough a number that we can't really point to alpha radiation as being a big contributor to the radiation that's possibly in this confection from fallout, maybe that has contaminated the green tea in Japan. In many places. So, however, we do have, without the packaging, a 21.6% higher in radiation than background count.